afternoon, good morning, CIU Nation, Kabbalah Nation. Here we are again, Berkeley College of Law, and we are continuing this series of the Bill of Rights. Of course, we did the first part of dealing with the first article or amendment of the Bill of Rights, and the first one, part one, we talk about religion, freedom of religion and expression, and this is the part two of that series of that part. It's a two-part series for each of the amendment, each of the Bill of Rights. And in this one, we will talk about press, we talk about press, and we talk about right to protest or assemble, and petition. So again, Professor Kempson is going to lead the way. So welcome again, Professor Kempson. And here we are, the episode, and talking to our listener. We hope they will join in and continue to follow this series of our discussion. So the floor is yours.
So welcome to part two of the First Amendment: freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and right of redress. As we talked about before, we talked about freedom of speech and freedom of religion. The third one, freedom of the press. Well, why do we care about freedom of the press? Because we have to have some avenue, some mechanism of communication that is not censored by the government. And as you mentioned in the last podcast, what separates our country from other countries in the world? This is a major one. This is a huge one. The ability to basically, the media can publish news, information, and opinions without government censorship or fear of reprisal or punishment from the government. And that freedom is critical and crucial for a democratic society, as it promotes transparency, accountability, and it also creates an informed citizenry. So, when we think about this, we think about the most widely used is the Public Information or the Freedom of Information Act, which most people don't realize. You unless it's a classified or national security or some type of defense or military interest, the public has a right to the information from their government.
Right.
Through that Freedom of Information. The fourth, freedom of assembly. Protects the right of people to gather peacefully for demonstration, protest, parades, and other forms of collective expression. Let me say that again. Gather peacefully for demonstration, protest, parades, and other forms of collective expression. We're not talking about a mob here, okay? Like we learned about with protection of speech up until a point, that imminent lawless action test that we talked about under Brandenburg, okay? This is where that peaceful demonstration and that line of mob inciting violence, this is where that line gets pushed into wrongful or unprotected speech or unprotected assembly at that point. Basically, and again, that right is designed not for people to just take to the streets all the time, but it was designed by and conceived by our founding fathers back then for people to get together and discuss ideas, to basically say, look, we need a form of redress to our government, so we're going to all come together collectively and present a unified voice.
Right. Yeah, and so when you can go out and interfere with commerce all of the time. All of the time, you're on interstate highway, blocking the street. Yes, you can protest, but are you interfering with the free flow of goods, affecting other people? Suppose that causes malnutrition and other things. Are there other ways to create a petition, as we talk about next? Talk about breaking vandalism, putting fire, housing, putting fire on buildings, breaking businesses, causing all this chaotic movement. And then you call it protest. That is the way we're going to get their attention, by being destructive. Now we say peaceful protest. Again, you want to know more about these details and how much right you have to what extent you can express that right of protest, assembly. Attend our constitutional class, and we see cases and other things, in-depth knowledge that we'll expand on in the class. Then of course, even with the press issue, we got immunity towards the press because it's freedom to express themselves. But yet, to write their opinion, we've seen that press is writing in some of the issues we have now. press to publish a paper, their opinion on what's happening around some of the hot topics, and sometimes they lose the job. And then we say, well, why is that in harmony with what the Constitution says? Or sometimes they say you got to disclose your source of information because it's pertinent to this case. And they say, well, I can't do that. That will prevent me from getting information in the future. That's confidential, that's protected information. Well, then when the court said, no, we can't do this and that. And so again, we discussed this in the class, so come to join our class. And this is just an introductory lecture of the series. So we say whet your appetite when it comes to a constitutional class. Go on,
Right.
Kempson.
Absolutely. So again, the First Amendment protections are vital for fostering a dynamic and pluralistic society where many voices can come together for one common cause. And these individuals can freely express themselves, practice their beliefs, participate in the democratic process. And by ensuring these rights, the First Amendment helps guard against tyranny.
Right.
I know that's kind of an old-fashioned word, but it's still modern day government overreach and promote dialogue and active citizenship.
Yep.
Response.
I mean, we literally seen government that shut down press. Well, we don't want this station because they're publishing whatsoever the opinion is, shut them down. And it happened a lot in many countries. They just shut the press down, and because they don't like what the press is saying. Fortunately for us in America, it's protected, but we have had some challenges that we also discuss in the constitutional class. So maybe we can move on to petition. Except you want to continue to talk about the two. Go ahead, Professor Kempson.
Absolutely. So again, just like you mentioned about whetting your appetite, if you want to know more about your individual rights and protections, come take constitutional law. Come learn the law.
Come appreciate the law. At a pace that you really enjoy, good atmosphere, family atmosphere, but very diligent in going precisely according to the material, research, practice, theory, tutorial manner, that like a personalized lecture. We invited all of our students to see this. But then again, so we let them into the last part, the petition. So how do we exercise that right today?
Right, the right to petition the government. Well, most people they think to write a letter. Well, that's just one small part of it. It includes the right to lobby the government, file lawsuits in government actions, and petitions advocating for changes in law or policy. Again, it's known as the right of redress, the right to address grievances in a formal and informal manner. And again, that was a big thing during when our founding fathers drafted this, the ability not to have to answer solely to a monarch.
Right. And so recently we had the judge in Florida had a lot of over 1,000 petitions, we just read in the paper, the appeal court, and they had to stop the petition because some of them were the repetitions. But I mean, that's the right you have. You can redress it. We don't like the ruling this judge is doing. What's else? Do you want to remove the judge or what do you want? But you can just write a petition. You can file a lawsuit. Isn't that funny? Interesting. The environmental law, EPA law, you don't like the law, administrative law, you can file a petition, to redress it or go to court. And we have lawsuits against the court all of the time. Every time law passes, a lot of challenges to make sure those laws are not in conflict with the Constitution. And that's why it's important to take this course, the constitutional course, rights course, to see how everything fits together and how much right you have. But it does give us a lot of rights. It's a living, breathing document. And but the more you study it, the more you begin to appreciate the effort that was put in it. It wasn't just one time, like we discussed in the summary. It was an overall effort that was put in it for it to be what it is today. So, come to join us to learn about this course. You want to give a complete summary of, go ahead, or you want to give a complete summary of, since this is the last part of the series for Article 1?
Well, so the First Amendment, as I said before, are guaranteed for fostering the individual, the first. That's why that's the First Amendment. The most important for them was the ability to speak out. to speak their minds, to speak their thoughts, to redress, to talk about the government, to keep the government in check. Again, as Abraham Lincoln said, a government for the people, by the people, shall not perish from the earth. We are a nation of the rule of law, but that law is by the will of the governed, the masses.
So thank you very much, Professor Kempson. That's another good series for this evening. We will discuss on the following series. The next one will be the right to bear arms, Article 2. So tune in for that, please. Again, CIU Nation, Kabbalah Nation, Bible College of Law. We thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. Keep us, keep subscribing, keep liking our videos. And again, we invite you to be our student as well.
We'll see you shortly. See you next time, and hopefully see you in class.
Thank you, and you have a good day, everyone. Thank you, Professor Kempson. It's nice to be together again.